Hello everyone and welcome to another video. Now this is an Alienware Aurora R11. I found it at CEX for £300 and considering I had £150 in vouchers after trading in some old CPUs, well I just couldn't resist. We've looked at a few old Alienware desktops over the years, but this might just be the newest. According to the service tag, it shipped in late 2020 and spec wise it's been changed just a little bit since then. I think these started at about $899 here in the UK, so it's safe to say this one probably cost its original owner at least 3 times the price I paid 4.5 years later. I think it still holds up today as far as looks go. I love the rounded chassis along with the black and white design. It's like something out of Portal. It's not too over the top, but it looks like there is something special waiting behind the side panel. Unfortunately, that's not quite true here. If you had a few grand to spare back in 2020, then you could have got one of these beasts with a top tier 10th gen i9 and RTX 3090 or even dual 2080 Ti's for some reason, as if SLI wasn't already dead by then. It may have also been a good way to get a 30 series card at a time when they were really hard to find and really expensive. So my system is far more modest. As a quick side note, I always have problems with Alienware side panels. They always catch or get stuck or don't sit right. It must just be me. I mean, it has to be. Anyway, I wanted to mention that because filming this part took half an hour because I got the side panel stuck half off and half on. Where were we? Ah yes, specs. Inside my cut price R11 we have a non-modular 550 watt PSU suspended above the rest of the internals. This can be unlocked at the rear and will then swing out to reveal the second layer of innards. Nothing too fancy here. The motherboard looks like standard micro ATX form factor, but I'm assuming there are proprietary connectors on here. We also have a front and top fan and a light coating of dust. It's cleaner than I thought it would be in here though. This R11 was originally spec'd with a 6-core 12-thread i5-10400F, a GTX 1660 Ti, a single 8GB stick of 2933MHz DDR4 and a 256GB M.2 SSD. Since then, someone has added a secondary 500GB SATA SSD and 16GB of 3600MHz RAM, a speed which the R11 doesn't seem to work with. The original RAM module was left in here too, so we have 24 gigs in total. This mismatched RAM will work fine, but it will run at 2133MHz. Even when I removed the 8GB stick and tried to run the matching 16GB pair at their on-paper 3600MHz speed, I couldn't. All I could do was enable the XMP option and watch as the PC got stuck in a boot loop before resetting the memory back to 2133. I couldn't find any manual timing controls either. For the graphics card we have a 1660 Ti 6GB, an OEM version. This one uses one of the 2 available 8-pin PCIe connectors. As part of this system, this PCIe 3.0 X16 graphics card runs in PCIe X8 mode. At first I thought something was broken, but no. The Dell support page confirms that the PCIe X16 slots operate with 8 lanes. Performance impact is probably minimal as part of this machine, but it'll depend on the GPU configuration and the game that you're playing. This second-hand Aurora has also been upgraded to Windows 11 at some point and reset, but for testing purposes I'm using my Windows 10 M.2 SSD as it's where all my games are installed. As we move on to some gaming tests, I'll be keeping my eye on the CPU and GPU temperatures as well as listening out for any overbearing acoustics. It looks a bit like a jet engine, but I hope it doesn't sound like one. I've read a couple of original reviews that mention heat and noise, as well as a few Reddit posts asking about improving both. Again, though, these were mainly centred around higher end models. I'm assuming the more modest, less power hungry components inside this cramped enclosure will mean it doesn't turn my office into a sauna, a very noisy sauna. So let's get into the games, starting with CS2. Is the i5-10400F and 1660 Ti combo still enough to play some of the latest and greatest games out there? Well, for a title like this, absolutely. I'm using CS2's high preset with 4x MSAA. Of course, I'd suggest a lower preset or lowering the settings completely if you want to maximise frame rate, which is always ideal in an online competitive title such as this. Now, the i5-10400 is cooled with a standard cooler, nothing special, no liquid cooling for this model of course. I've replaced the paste and we're still seeing temperatures upward of 70 degrees. We have the side panel back on now. There's no throttling going on. The CPU is still hitting its 4 GHz all-core turbo speed. I didn't see this drop at all. It was literally sitting at 4 GHz or 4000 MHz, as you can see to the left of the screen, and it didn't change from this. The CPU is very power efficient, and when it comes to the graphics card, you're going to find that this is limited in some scenarios, and in others the CPU will be the limitation. But here performance is okay. The GPU temperature isn't too high, at least 70 degrees, but we'll have to see if this changes in more demanding scenarios. For Cyberpunk 2077, we have the medium preset with the low crowd density as set by the game by default. Again, the CPU temperatures are approaching 80 degrees, sometimes exceeding that, but no throttling at all. The all-core speed still sat at 4000 MHz, as you're going to see it do throughout the entirety of this video. This is a little more GPU intensive this time around, which is surprising considering I thought the 10400F would be the primary limitation here, and I thought we'd see a lot less from the GPU in terms of that utilization, somewhere around 70-80%, but this 6-core 12-thread chip is still pretty respectable in 2025. Again, temperatures of the GPU are also approaching 80 degrees, so even with these more modest specs, this is far from a high-end system, it never really was, we are getting some temperatures that are higher than I'd like to see, put it that way, but nothing too alarming. It's not affecting the speeds or the performance of either component. Fortnite up next. Again, you're going to see temperatures approaching 80 degrees for both the GPU and CPU here. This time the game is rather CPU limited, but again I think this pairing is still pretty respectable. Now, when this originally shipped, according to the service tag, the spec sheet, it had just 8 gigs of RAM. This was a single 8 gig stick of 2933 MHz DDR4. The speed is absolutely fine, no issues there, but a single 8 gig stick would have certainly given its original owner some problems, even in 2020. It was a good call by the previous owner to add that extra RAM. It certainly helps in a lot of these games. A literal game changer. GTA 5 Enhanced Edition now with the high preset and FSR3 enabled but set to native, so we're running at native 1080p. I find that FSR3 looks a lot better than the TAA solution, which can make things look a little blurry. Now in this one we're more GPU limited, but again I think these two components make for a pretty decent pairing, and it's nice to see that we're hitting at least 90 FPS with respectable settings. GTA 5 is holding up quite nicely. And it's worth noting as well that 6 gigs of VRAM is used up pretty quickly these days, even in GTA 5 here. And switching to the very high preset will further encroach on that 6 gig buffer. Next up we have Kingdom Come Deliverance, one of my favourite games to come out this year, well, ever to be honest. I'm using 1080p with the medium settings. We could also use high, but we will see a few more dips below 60 frames per second. Something weird just happened here. The NPCs disappeared right in front of my eyes. I'm not sure if this is because of a VRAM limitation, like the game's just clearing assets from the screen as I walk through the environments to try and maintain a steady frame rate. Not sure what that was about, but I don't know if you saw it. The NPCs just vanished into thin air. Don't know why that happened, but my best guess is something to do with VRAM. Again though, I'm quite surprised by the results here. The 10400F seems to be a pretty solid CPU even in 2025 if you're on a budget. It is socket 1200, so limited as to where you can go in terms of an upgrade. A 10900 i9 would be a really nice choice, but you might find that that is weaker than even some of the newest i5 CPUs in certain scenarios. But I'm pretty happy with the price I paid for this Alienware though. These older systems can still be priced higher than you'd expect them to be, or they should be because of the Alienware name, but every so often a decent deal comes up. And while you may be limited sometimes in terms of upgradability because of proprietary connectors and stuff, it does feel cool to own one. Red Dead Redemption 2 up next with the Xbox One X equivalent Digital Foundry settings for 85 frames per second here. This is performing really nicely with some very consistent percentile lows as well. We're looking at 64 and 58 even in and around town. Now you're going to see the CPU utilization spike in and around busier areas, but overall, once again, this is a fairly decent pairing. Let's quickly check out the noise under load of the Alienware as well here. Yeah, as you heard there, it is audible, but it's nothing offensive at all. No noisier than a lot of systems I've tested, really. It's not overbearing at all. It's not like, oh wow, I need to get headphones on immediately. It's absolutely fine, which I was expecting louder, to be fair, but I guess with higher end components that is going to be the case. But maybe if I upgrade this one, we'll revisit and see how it sounds and how hot it really gets. Let's finalise with perhaps the most demanding title tested today, The Elder Scrolls Oblivion Remastered. I had to drop things to the medium settings here. Now medium and low, it really wasn't too different in terms of performance. We still needed FSR as well for 47 FPS overall. The percentile lows certainly left a little to be desired. Once again, our VRAM is encroaching on 6 gigs, the max that this card offers. But all in all, I think this Alienware Aurora R11 is doing pretty well. The i5 10400F and 1660 Ti make for a pretty solid entry-level combo in 2025. But there we are, the Alienware Aurora R11. We'll upgrade this thing, I think. I'll give it a bit of a clean up. I might make a few videos or shorts of me cleaning various components just because I quite enjoy doing so. It can be a bit therapeutic sometimes, so hopefully you'll enjoy those too. But as for this one, thanks for watching as always. Leave your thoughts down below and hopefully I'll see all of you in the next one.